That's it.
Hey Mo,
Hey, Ricky, we're live on Facebook.
Happy New Year. Happy 2024, Mo.
We made it. Happy New Year. The doctor is what?
The
The
doctor
doctor
is
is here.
in. The doctor is in.
We are
Mo, can you
here.
believe we're like starting it'll be our 4-year anniversary in April 1st.
I don't believe that. I think this is it's a blessing and it's so wonderful to be able to offer programming that still stays fresh in people's minds and in their interest. And some of the topics are not new, but they're vital to a new audience. And I think that we got to hear them again sometimes because sometimes you're not ready to receive every message you get.
And when you think about it, Mo, I've talked to 3 new breasties today
Yeah.
that just got diagnosed. And I probably, we kind of shut down over the holidays, but I still take all the calls, I can't stop doing that. And I probably had 7 calls over the holidays of new breasties just got diagnosed. My
Mhm.
mom, my friend, whatever, gave me your number, so and so gave me your number. And so we get a new audience every day, Mo, you
Every
know,
time.
every day. And we just have to keep feeding them and nourishing them with all the information that we can. And we love our friend Nani. She started last year with us, and we're so happy to have her start this year with us. And she is just a badass all around,
90
and
has it been a year already? Oh my gosh, I love it.
right.
I'm
And
ready.
so we're so glad to have her here to talk about, guess what? Getting your house in order. And we all have so many things on our plate, and we don't focus on ourselves until something happens or we're in a crisis or we need money or we want to buy a house or a car or whatever. And then we're like, well, how do I do that? And breast cancer just adds a whole nother level of a financial conversation that I don't even want to talk
Mhm.
about. I was with Ari, our baby Ari, yesterday. She was having a little surgery, and her insurance changed, right? So at the hospital, she had her last year's insurance, which was a horrible policy with a $6,000 deductible. So, okay, give us $6,000 today because that's your deductible. And we're like, wait a minute, her insurance changed, and here's her new insurance card. And luckily we had our act together. And so we knew that, and her new deductible was 2,500. But even then I said, okay, well, what's the minimum amount she has to actually pay today of that money? And it turned out to be like 35%, which was $835. We went from having to pay $6,000, whatever, $6,600 to $835 just because we knew what we're talking about. So
And
how
because
many,
you asked, absolutely.
right, how many people would just be freaked out and walk away and not have the surgery or try to figure it out or pay the money and like put on a credit card or something like that? But it's like, and luckily, we had the wherewithal to say, hold on, wait a minute, something's not right here. But
The
all
studies
the
show, though, Ricky, that that is a key reason why many Black women don't finish treatment. And it's the same reason why folks who are diabetic are parsing out their insulin, right? And they're
right,
taking a lower dose,
right,
and their A1C doesn't
right,
repair.
right,
It doesn't normalize. But
right.
also, we find that Black women, when you ask them some of the reasons why they don't complete treatment, it's not just because they are reluctant to. It's not because they're, as they say, non-adherent or whatever the words are that say that Black women don't like to follow the rules, but it's because of money. It's because of transportation. Over and over and over again, that bill, when you get to chemo and you get a $10,000 bill, come on.
What are you going to do? Right.
Well, we're gonna get our houses in order. Nanny, come tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about you and your mission and your why.
All right. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year, Dr. Mo. Happy New Year, Ricky. So great to be back with you. I love, love, love getting together with you ladies and talking about these topics because they are truly life-changing conversations that we have here. So my name is Nani Conde. I am a clinician. I'm a physician assistant in the emergency department, also was a hospitalist PA for 7 years, now in the ER for 7 years. So in total for 14 years, I've been in healthcare. And 7 years ago, I branched off into the financial arena, and I am a licensed life and health insurance producer in multiple states. and also a registered Social Security analyst and a financial educator. I love educating. Actually, the reason for my career in finance was to educate the community about these things that we're talking about, because I saw that in healthcare, my own personal experience with family members and also stories from patients, I really realized that there's such a financial burden that comes with illnesses, not only for the patients, but the caregivers, and it's just a tremendous stress. So I felt that once I started to educate myself financially, I was dealing with the issues in the healthcare arena, but then the solutions were in the financial sector. So I just felt that people needed to have this information so that we can plan properly, we can build a strong financial foundation so that when things happen, you can never be prepared 100%. However, you can do as much as you can. So certain things are manageable, because we never know. We never know when we're going to get sick. We never know when somebody's going to pass away. And every time these things happen, it just comes with so much financial burden for families. So that's my why. My why is to really educate the community and alleviate financial stress.
That is so awesome. And so many of us are unprepared and so many of us are underinsured, especially when you get insurance through your job, right? So we sign the papers, we get the policy, but we really don't understand it until we're sick. And, I was blessed to have good insurance, but I didn't really know I had good insurance. I didn't really know what was going on. You know what I mean?
It's because you don't know when you pick your plan, right?
Right.
What plan even to pick. You go with the lowest cost, or you go with the one that's got the most of whatever it is you think you need. And there really is no, where do people learn this? Because you think about what you learned in school, what you learned in high school. We fortunately, we had typing, we had home ec, right? We had a little bit of wood shop and you learn how to use a screwdriver. But where do people learn how to use and utilize health insurance and how to pick the right plan? There's no guidebook for this.
There's no guidebook. Even for managing money, there's no guidebook.
Absolutely. And that's why I got so intrigued by because same thing, right? We all went to school for years and years and years, actually worked in healthcare. Patients always ask us about healthcare issues. And my answer is always, I have no idea. I'm going to let the registration lady come, talk to you about your insurance, because I don't know. Providers have no idea. Right. And even for me, doing what I do now has made me a better provider because I'm more mindful of the bills that the patients are going to get. So when I order stuff or do certain things, I make sure that I have a discussion and really do what's necessary so that people don't end up with unnecessary bills that they need to get, but at the same time, make sure that they're getting the care that they need to get. Where do we get this information? It's really difficult because I stumbled upon it. If it wasn't for a national financial literacy campaign that I got curious in and wanted to educate myself more, I didn't have this information either 7 years ago. In fact, I remember when we did a personal financial strategy, which is something that I honestly offer to everyone, recommend to everyone, but offer it for free as well, especially at the beginning of the year. It's like an inventory, like a GPS, right, of your financial house. Basically, you try to see where you are now, what are your goals, what is your insurable need, what kind of insurance you have. We get a chance to look at your policies, health insurance policies, life insurance policies. I remember when it was done for me, I had about $130,000 in term insurance through work, but my insurable need was over $2 million. But I didn't know because of my dime, right? When you look at how much you need, there's an insurable need. Everybody has an insurable need, and it's calculated by 4 things. DIME, your debt, 10 times your income, the balance on your mortgage, and education for your kids, depending on how many kids you have. I had no clue. So in my mind, I have insurance through work. So I didn't have to worry about it, but I was very underinsured. Then they asked me, well, assuming something had happened to you, what would your family do with that $130,000? And my daughter was 1 at the time. I have 3 kids. So it wasn't enough. So that was a huge eye-opener. Health insurance, usually people tend to go for the cheapest one, not knowing that the cheaper your premium, the higher your deductible. So you have to make sure that, you kind of understand exactly what you're doing before you go into that. That's another thing that I offer during usually November, is the time for enrollment, right? I always encourage people, let's talk about it, let's see what you have, and then, so that you can pick the right plans for yourself. Because this information, nobody's teaching us this information. And that's really where my passion is, to make sure, because you never think you need insurance, you never take it seriously, you think it's expensive until when you need it. Then you realize that this is much cheaper than what I have to pay out of pocket.
The cost, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
I just opened up a medical bill today for someone, and this person has been in the hospital, multiple procedures, Ricky. The bill is $700,000.
Oh my God.
This is a family member of mine, $700,000. So then I'm
That's
looking
enough
at
to
the
give
bill.
you
As
a
soon as I
medical
opened it, I
condition.
laughed because I was just like, I mean, I've seen higher bills, but I've never seen that high. So with that insurance,
That's enough to give you a heart attack, though. That's
Yeah, I
enough to
know,
cause you
but
to have an event.
my little fake boobs, are bigger than the ones that try to kill me, Mo. But I call my little fake boobs my $500,000 boobs. Between all of my treatment, all the chemo, the surgeries, everything was $500,000. And thank God I had insurance to cover it. But it was $500,000. I leave those little suckers that I now have were $500,000 to keep me alive.
So then
Yeah.
let's start there, because when people, especially from the cancer standpoint, again, you go and you get that screening mammogram. That screening mammogram is probably free, right? If you didn't have
Right.
insurance, you can get it through B-CHIP or whatever. You got insurance, it's covered. Then they call you back, and now you got a diagnostic one, right? And now you need a biopsy. And so now you got a bill.
When people fall out there, Mo, because
Exactly.
it's going to be $1,800, $2,200 to get the MRI or to get the C scan or whatever. And that's where we lose a lot of women. They don't get it.
Yeah. It's very true.
Right?
Talk to us about that sticker shock, and how do you respond when you first start to recognize that you might be having a medical event this is going to snowball? Because I tell you what most people do, they put them bills in the drawer and they say, I'll deal with this if I survive, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really challenging. Well, first of all, what I would say for patients that are currently sick and dealing with the treatments, try to do the best you can to focus on your healing, right? It's kind of easier said than done, but the financial, bills and the co-pays and all of that, do pay as much as you can, but whatever you can't, as long as you're getting the care, get that care, focus on yourself. And when you get better, you can deal with the financial issues. Because at the time, there's nothing else to do. There's really nothing else you can do. So deal with it when you can deal with it. Because if you couple the financial stress with the healthcare stress that you have, your body, your immune system needs to be strong enough to, handle all the heavy treatments that you're getting. So that would be my first instinct,
And
for those,
that works if you are going to get better. But what if you're metastatic and you're going to be on chemo for the rest of your life? You have no idea what that time frame looks like. You know what I mean? And also, like for me, I had really good life insurance from my job, but it got canceled. I can't get life insurance now, 12 years later. I still can't. I try every year, I try again, and I get rejected. And so I mean, when you get sick, your whole situation could change drastically and impact your life. And if you're metastatic, and that's where we see so much financial toxicity with our breasties who are taking these drugs that are costing 20 grand a month for the rest of their life, however long that is, which is insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have two answers for that. There are two parts answers. For the first thing is patients that are currently metastatic, going through that process. Again, I would say there's nothing you can do at this point from the medical standpoint, right? The bills and all that. So I would really say focus on healing, focus on your family, enjoy the days that you have with them to the best of your ability. And then, sometimes hospitals have ways. There are different ways that medical bills can get handled, a lot of time. So there are ways that medical bills can get handled, and you can navigate through those ways. Then the second answer I have with that is the preventative part, right? It's of course, when we don't know, that's the beauty, the thing of it. Nobody knows. And cancer, especially now, I cannot tell you how many younger people are getting diagnosed with cancer at an early age. I've gotten 21-year-old, sometimes a 19-year-old with
Yeah.
cervical, cancer, ovarian cancer, breast cancer, people, in their 30s, so early 40s. So it's so early. It's funny, back when I was in school, I guess I was taught that cancer was the old people's disease, right? Like
We
you
were
get
taught
older,
that too.
right?
Yeah,
Yep.
we got that,
That in
right?
medical school.
Yeah.
You're right.
That's
Right.
what I thought. So when I heard breast cancer, I'm thinking about a lady in her 70s or 80s, but now people my age, my good friend actually was diagnosed when she was a year younger than me, so that makes it such a shocking thing, or such a real thing. And so to that conversation, I would say all of us, no matter where we are now, we should think about financial planning. Think about building a strong financial foundation early on. Think about getting our house in order, and dealing with the four things that constitute your financial foundation, which is the very first thing is going to be protection. Protecting your health, life insurance, health insurance, long-term care policies, life insurance policies, making sure not just having it, making sure you have the right one, right? Because many people have the illusion of, oh, I have something. But when you look at it, when you dissect what they have, it's really not what they need or what could benefit them. But they don't know. Nobody knows this thing.
Nani, can you slow down real quick for me? Because I'm jotting these down for the chat and I want to make sure that I'm getting them. But I want to go back really quickly to one thing you said, whether you're newly diagnosed with early disease or metastatic disease or whatever, if you don't prioritize your health to the extent that you can, the time with your family, your peace of mind, right? Don't let bills override all of that. And it's easier said than done. I know it, but that impacts your healing, and so if you are, grappling these things, then you might have a box that says, you know what, I'm going to open these in a month. I'm going to open these in 2 months. I'm going to deal with this when I'm in a better place emotionally to be able to make good decisions and to be able to ask for help. Or if you're lucky, you have a financial navigator at the cancer center, and everybody should be asking about that immediately. As soon as you get diagnosed, do you have a financial navigator, not just a person in billing and collections, but is there someone who can help me navigate the grants, navigate insurance, navigate my copays and what to expect? Because a lot of cancer programs do. And now you said there are 4 ways to get your house in order?
4 ways to get your house in order. To build a strong financial foundation. And I feel that once you have that strong financial foundation, then your financial house gets in order. Your financial stress is reduced. And, talking about the first thing is going to be protection, because when I'm sick and I can't go to work tomorrow, my bills has to be paid. My health care cost has to be paid, life insurance, all those things come. So that's the number one, making sure that you get that right. And that's by asking questions, educating yourselves about the different policies that you have so that you have the right one. And also when we talk about protection, we're talking estate planning. And for, our, friends that are sick right now, worried about medical bills and all of that, this is also the time to do a good estate planning, actually for all of us, whether you're sick or healthy. Everybody needs estate planning. Everybody needs to have a will. Everybody needs to set up things, put things in writing, put beneficiaries on your accounts. And, if you can, put assets in trust. Because let's say, for example, I'm a mother of 3. I have assets that I would want to go to my children. However, if I'm sick and I pass away and I don't do proper estate planning and I have all this debt that's out there, all these medical bills, what is left for my children? If I don't plan properly, there are ways to structure my assets where my children are good, they're protected, and the bills, whatever needs to be, however they need to be taken care of, they can be taken care of that way, but I'm not leaving my children dry. So that estate planning part is very, very, very important. And that's part of your protection as well, protecting yourself and your family.
Somebody else put in the chat, make sure you have cancer and critical care policies too. You can put those in, and make sure you have those as well.
Yep.
Absolutely. And people.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you. But so many of us though, like, I don't really have an estate. Like, you know what I mean? Like, would say, what's an estate? What does that mean? I have, a little savings. I have my house. I have you know what I mean? But I wouldn't
That's your
call what
estate though.
I know, but I would say, but like, I think most people don't call what they have an estate, because I don't live like, because I'm not wealthy, do you know what I mean? So, but I think, explain what that means, because I think it would help that we all have an estate of some sort, right? Like, what does that mean? It could be the jewelry that your grandmother left you. It could be, I have an old car from my dad, like, but I mean, what does estate really mean to the average person who isn't a millionaire? Like, I mean, I think estate, I think of like dynasty, or, like a person with a huge house, or, you know what I mean? Like, but what does that mean to the average family, the average person?
That's such a good question, Ricky. And that's the thing, we always underestimate how much we're worth, but all of us are worth something. If you have a phone, that's $1,000, our iPhones right now, even though we pay them
$1,500, right? Oh my God.
right? If you had to pay for that iPhone in full, you'll pay at least $1,000 or close to it. So everybody has an estate. That, $500 in your account, $1,000 in your account. Don't underestimate that. The value of your house. So everybody has an estate. And will I rather my $500 go to my children when I pass away, or just goes into unclaimed assets with the state? Right? So a lot of time when you don't have beneficiaries to your account and something happens to you, the moment someone dies, the hospital let the state know, and your Social Security is blocked. So all your assets are frozen. So nobody can go in to do anything. So, if you have beneficiaries on accounts and you have things in writing, at least things that you have are protected for your family. And people do underestimate their worth. Sometimes before I recommend any type of life insurance for someone, we do their insurable need so that you can know what your human value is. Me right now as nanny, if I pass away, what is my human value to my family? So there's a formula that we use for that, and it's called the DIME method. D stands for debt, I, 10 times your income, M, mortgage balance, and then E, education for your children. So a lot of time when you add that up, let's say you had $50,000 in debt, you make about $50,000 a year. That times 10, that's about $500,000, right? You have about $500,000 or 200,000 left on your mortgage. Your children, you have 2 or 3 kids, they need to go to school. So you estimate about $100,000 per child. So when you add that, you see that your insurable need, your responsibility to your family is a lot. So, we shouldn't underestimate how much we're worth. We're all worth a lot. We don't underestimate. That's why doing that personal financial strategy is such an eye opener. So you know exactly what your responsibility is, what your human value is. And it's a big eye opener when you do that.
Yeah. So even if I'm living check to check, I should still have a beneficiary on my checking account, right?
Yes.
So at least somebody will have access to whatever little money I have when I die, or if I die, right? That at least my daughters can have access to whatever it is, right? So I don't know that we're doing that. When you open a checking account, are you putting a beneficiary on? Are you putting your kids? Are you thinking about that stuff? I don't know. I mean, I think we all have to like take a hard look at all those little things that
Right.
Ricky,
And don't assume that they're little, right? Don't assume. That's what I hear you saying, Annie. Don't assume that anything is little. Whatever you have, if it's the silver that your grandmother passed down to you, if it's your china, if it's, whatever money is in your bank account, it's something, and it's an estate, and you need to take stock of it and figure out how you want it, where you want it to go, and how you want it to be used in the event that something happens to you.
Absolutely. Oh, I actually have a
first on your jewelry, on your jewelry, if you have any jewelry, whatever it is,
Yeah. I have a personal experience with that. When my mom was terminally ill, I was with her in France, and then I had to come back and go because after 6 months I couldn't stay, without a visa. I had to come back to the US and then go. And I knew she was terminally ill. I didn't want to travel with the money that we would need for burial and stuff like that. So I had access to her account while she was alive. So I put the money in her account. So when I was supposed to get to France on Sunday, my mom passed away on Friday. So Monday, when I went to the bank, I couldn't have access to her account. And this is for everywhere, here in the US. I wasn't a co-owner of the account. I just had access to her card and the account information. And, I had to like prove that she was my mom and I had access to the money. And imagine losing my best friend. I was her only child. I was just grief striking. I couldn't even think straight. So basically, I just let that money go. At that point, I just put everything on a credit card. We did the burial, did everything. And to this day, I lost that money. And that was like a lot of money that I lost because I didn't know. I didn't have any education on those things, you know? So that's why it's so important. Not what you don't know can hurt you. So something as simple as adding a beneficiary to an account, at least if she had added me as a beneficiary, then it would have been a different story, you know? Or as a co-owner or whatever, but we didn't know. And this is the same thing here as well. A lot of people pass away. I'm the treasurer of our Guinean community here in Maryland, DC, and Virginia. And every time somebody passes away, we do GoFundMes and fundraising activities to send the body back or bury the people here. But guess what, Ricky, a lot of these people have bank accounts. They have different things through, you know, their jobs and things like that. But if your family doesn't know, then nobody knows. And
Nobody
you know,
knows. Yeah, I know. Well, I know my fiance Nate, both of his parents died within 9 months of each other without a will.
Yeah.
And it's been 2.5 years now, and that stuff is still in probate. It is still unresolved. And there's a lot of money at stake, 3 houses, and like property. And he's actually having to deal with the expenses associated with the properties, like cutting the grass, paying the taxes or whatever. Yet he has no access to the funds that would cover all those expenses. And also, the Black family thing, he's fighting with his sister over it. So, if you're not in alignment with your siblings, you know what happens when, it's like, when somebody.
Well, let me ask you that. What happens though if you have a will but not a trust? Right? How does that work in terms of what your family, let's say people think, you know what, I did my will and I got my affairs in order and then they pass away. What happens after a person passes away?
So there are a couple of things. A person who passes away without any will is basically the state takes over at that point. And then everybody comes in, they make their case, and the state and the lawyers, they decide what goes to who. Which includes a lot of fees, a lot of.
What does that mean? When you said, what does that mean? The estate takes over. What does that mean?
No, the state takes over.
The state takes over.
Right.
So the state now
Right.
owns your stuff. Wow.
The state owns your stuff, and it's up to your family and whoever you owe money and different things to fight for what goes to who. And of course, lawyers are involved who will then help with the process to facilitate. It's a very tedious, emotionally difficult process to go through. So you have a will, things are, documented. Hey, I want my house to go to this person. I want this to go to this person. I want this to go to this person. It's signed, notarized, filed with the court. That stands, and that helps a lot. That helps alleviate a lot of, even when it's contested, if somebody comes and they don't agree with what's there, at the end of the day, what your wishes were, it's a lot more easier. It's a lot more easier process than if you don't have anything at all. Even guardianship for children and stuff like that, all those things need to be in writing. The difference between just a simple will, simple estate planning, and having a trust is the trust basically means that, okay, so I owe this house, I owe, these different assets that I have, I put them in a trust. What I'm saying is that now the trust owns my assets. I have control of it, but it owns my assets. So people that I might owe, or people who may come after me, they're coming after Nani, they can come after the trust, because the trust doesn't, my assets, my house in the trust doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the trust so that it can go to my kids in an easier process. Also, when it comes to taxing, depending on what your net worth is when you die, you could be liable for estate tax, right? So federal estate tax is more like 11 million or more. I think it was like 11 million a couple years ago. State tax depends on your state. So if your assets are over, let's say 5 million, or 6 million in some states, you may have to pay estate tax on what you owe. So if my assets are in a trust and it doesn't belong to me, that protects my assets from all those taxations and different things like that. And also things that people that may come after me. So a will and a trust, they're different, but they're both needed to make sure you're protecting your family and your assets. And they're not for the rich. You know, people, that's the misconception.
It's for everybody.
It's for everyone.
You think you
Yeah.
call it, think about
Say it
trust fund
again,
babies,
say it
right?
again.
Yeah, because we think about
A will
trust
and
fund
a
babies
trust
for
is not for
everybody.
the rich. It's for everyone. Everyone.
everyone.
We're all worth something, and we need to make sure that we protect our assets.
So if you want to do a trust right now, who do you call? Where do you go? Do we call you? Can we call you? Can you do that for us, or what do we do?
Absolutely. I work with a company. So of course, trust and wills are legal documents, and these are drafted by lawyers so that everything is done in a proper way. So I work in partnership with companies where, you know, the lawyers have already drafted a will, and then you basically fill it out based on, you know, what you have. And, you know, it's very self-explanatory, a basic will. And then while you're doing that, and through that process, also not just a will, but you do a HIPAA form so that whoever is your need access to your medical information can have access to that, because of privacy, hospitals are not just going to you know disclose your private healthcare information. So you need to make sure you give someone permission for that. So that HIPAA form is done. Advanced directives. Again, if it comes time where you feel that, okay, I don't want to go through certain measures to stay alive, you know, when do we turn off the machines? When do we do CPR? When do we do these things? You can have control of all of that. All of that is part of your estate planning. I remember I had to make the decision to not intubate my mom at some point. And it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, because how do you decide for someone, you know, and also how do you even decide that for your parents? But thank God, because of my medical background, and I knew that at this point, just letting her go was the best thing, because we did everything we could. I was able to make that decision, but it's not an easy decision to make for someone else. So we can help our family members make those decisions. You can do advanced directives. You can also do a power of attorney, you know, a person who will make decisions for you, financial decisions. Your medical power of attorney could make decisions for you. So all those things are past, you know, things that you can do. They're like forms that you fill out yourself, right? And then if you need more assistance from a lawyer, then, you know, the system will trigger you to let you know, and then you sit with someone and do more advanced planning based on how complicated things are or how many assets do you have. But people do have access to the basic of the basic that we're talking about now at a very affordable cost, and it's something that's very, very important.
Something that we really have to do. And you know, the DNR thing, you know, sometimes families don't agree. Like my mom and her brother did not agree on the DNR for my grandmother, and they fought over it. The same thing happened with Nate and his sister. They didn't agree over it, and that just caused total anxiety for the family. So, but it's important to talk about it and put it on the table before it's a necessary conversation.
And I think you're right, Ricky. That's why it's so important for you to say what you want, because it's the family's job to execute your wishes. If you haven't told anybody what your wishes are, if you don't want to talk about it, because don't talk up death, that's not going to be helpful, and that's leaving a family in a bad bind. You know, Nanny, you're getting some comments here in the chat. Somebody said, thank you for your expertise. People are like, listen, we need to stop these GoFundMes and these chicken dinners trying to raise money, you know, for people's funerals, because it dishonors the living and the people who just want to grieve. Right? Like, I think I told one of my uncles that too. I said, listen, when and if you know something happens to you, we just want to be able to grieve. I don't want to be responsible for any family arguments. I don't want to have to divide anything. I don't want that. And the best thing you can do is to get as much of your affairs in order as you can. And it was a cautionary tale for me as well. And somebody said in the chat, you got a question. Are there fees for estate planning, fees for the documents, the lawyer, etc.? And how are those really, can they be batched and bundled together, or is it something you have to sort of do individually?
That's a good question. So first of all, a simple will, I can literally take a piece of paper right now and write my wishes down, go and notarize it, and it's a legal document, and I file it with the court. And all I have to pay will be maybe the court fee, the filing fee, and the notary, the money for the notary, right? So it's not as expensive.
You have to file it with the court.
I'm sorry?
You have to file it with the court. You can't just
Right.
get it. Okay.
Right, exactly. You have to file it with the court. So it's not as expensive as we think, the process is. Then of course we have companies online that help us. You can do it yourself. Like, I remember the first will I did it myself. I went and entered all the stuff. I have it all, even like if I die, I want to be buried here. I'm from Guinea originally. So a lot of conversation in our community is when you pass away, where do you get buried? Right? Do you go back home or do you stay here? So that's a huge thing in our community and it delays things. So I have everything planned out. I want to stay here. I want this to go to this child. I want this to go to this child. This is what I have here. This is what I have here. So that everything is documented. And that at the time when I did it, it was like $99. So it's not as expensive as we think. And then, different trust accounts and different things like that. There are companies so you start out with a simple will, a basic will, and then as you put in your assets, it will trigger a recommendation if you need a trust, if you need to do a trust as well, and then when we talk about the trust, what I have seen usually, maybe like 400, 600, up to thousands, really depends on who you go to and who is doing it. But the best answer I can give you is that it's not as expensive as we think. And when we think about what we're protecting and what we end up saving for our families, the cost is minimal.
And what we could lose and what we could lose if we don't protect it, right?
Absolutely. And what we could lose.
Yeah. And earlier you talked about the state owns your property or whatever. And what I think is I'm experiencing with my fiance is that the state owns the property, but guess what? The state does not pay the bills. So you still have to pay taxes on the property. You still have to cut the grass. You still have to upkeep the property, even when you can get no income from it and you don't own it. And so the expenses are outrageous, depending on what could happen. And also if the person that died wasn't taking care of things, the house, it could be in disarray and in need of work, and it's sitting there rotting away while we're waiting for the state to resolve the issues, so.
Right. And really what it is that they have access to it, but it's not ownership. Like they don't own it. Like you said, they don't pay the taxes and all of the stuff that they need to pay, but they just have control over it because you didn't give control to anyone and you didn't plan properly. And with that, by the time you finish with all the fees and the penalties, the lawyer fees, sometimes by the time you get access to that asset, it's not worth what you think it would worth because you owe so much on it already.
Yep, you owe so much. Yep. Wow, so much to think about here, girly. Thank you for this conversation so much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's needed conversation.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So then the next step, like we said, 4 things to build your house, your financial house, protection, which we can talk about in the whole, each one of them are like a whole show, right? Because there's so much to talk about. So we have that protection part, health insurance, life insurance, knowing the different type of insurances you have, term. I have clients who had a 10-year life insurance policy. She thought she had a policy, but it was expired. When we sat down, I did a review. She thinks she has insurance, but it had expired. It was a 10-year term. Making sure you have long-term care policies. Your health care doesn't cover long-term care. Long-term care is when you need help with 2 or more activities of daily living, eating, bathing, transferring. This could be post-surgery, right? For some of the breasties or different things like that. When you need someone to help you with certain things, of course, life insurance policies, permanent versus term, understanding those things are very important. Then the next step of it also to get your financial house in order is debt management, because you're paying so much interest to somebody else that you could be saving. So we educate on debt management and helping people reduce their liabilities and be more disciplined and how to get out of debt. Then the next one is emergency fund, right? The worst thing that can happen to you is you're sick and you're broke and you need money and nobody's there to help you pay your bills. So having at least some emergency fund, the recommendation is to start with at least 3 to 6 months, maybe more of your income. When I first learned that concept, it really changed the way I spent money, because I'm like, why am I blowing money on this clothes or these shoes or these purses when if something happens, I don't even have money to pay my bills the next month, So it really helps you put things in perspective, making sure that you have that rainy day money and you can fall back on what you've saved over time. Then eventually investments, right? Understanding different investment accounts that you put your money in, your investment needs. If we're thinking retirement, all of us need at least 20 times our income before we retire. So when you have that information, you know how much you need to be putting aside every month. You can plan accordingly. This is when, because it's always better to plan, always better. You may not get to your goal 100%, but if you have a goal and you have a plan in place, you will be able to plug in what you already, what you know. That the knowledge is the key, honestly. The
Are y'all
knowledge.
getting all
Go
the
back for a
pearls?
second when you said
Right.
the 20 times what? Say that again.
Yeah. She'd dropped about 35 pearls.
I know.
You're gonna need to go back and replay this. You're gonna need to share it. You're gonna need to put it on share it on your page and share it to the people who are in your networks, on your YouTube, etc. Because she has dropped so many pearls in the last 3 sentences that it's unbelievable. But yes, we got to go back and we need to talk about okay, wait, what are we talking about, Ricky? We need to talk about
you need to have 20 times your
retirement.
income for
Yes.
retirement. 20 times your income. Oh my God, right?
Now, we got some questions in the chat.
You
So
got a
I
lot.
want to make sure. And the first one we asked, somebody said, advantages of the trust over the will. And I think I answered that one right. So let me see if I got it right, which is that if someone comes after you, what you put in a trust, they cannot touch. It is for whatever you designated to do and to be, correct?
Yes, correct. That's
Well,
a
how is
major.
that different from a will? How is that different from a will? Why is it better?
Well, so a will is just basically a statement of my wishes, right? A will is I have a home. I want the home to go to my child. But if I owe Ricky money and I have a home, that could be an issue. My assets, because whoever inherits your assets will inherit your liabilities. Right? That's what probate is for.
Oh, say it again. Whatever people, they inherit your assets, but they'll also inherit
your liability. Right. So when I pass away now, my assets are all frozen because if I owe Bank of America $50,000, they need to get paid. If I owe this person that money, they need to get paid. So a simple will say what I want to go to who. A trust will take ownership away from me. If I control it, but I'm not the owner of my assets, the trust is the owner.
So whatever you owe is irrelevant. If you owed $50,000 to Bank of America, what happens to that debt if all your money is in a trust?
Well, a trust is a legal entity in itself. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to my assets belong to the trust.
So Bank of America.
Going back to this subject though of people inheriting your liabilities.
Yeah.
What types of things are liabilities? Are they like student loan payments? Is it your mortgage? Is it your medical expenses? Like what constitutes a liability in this context?
Yeah. A liability will be if I have a car and I still have a car note, right? The money that I owe on the car, that needs to be paid. If I have a house, a mortgage, and there's a balance on that mortgage, then it needs to be paid. So the bank can come to take the house if they need to because I owe it, right? So, and that's why it's so important to know your insurable need and make that a part of how much you need, because when you buy insurance, you have to cover all these things. That's a responsible thing to do. You can't just, nobody chooses to die, right? But we can't just die and leave our liabilities open and be like, oh, I'm just dead now, so be it, right? So the responsible way to do it would be, if I can, of course, many people may not be able to, but if I can, make sure I cover my insurable needs. The first thing will be my debt, so that if I pass away, my family can pay off those debts. 10 times my income. So especially if I have young children, my income is a huge part of their upbringing, so they can maintain the same lifestyle. Balance on my mortgage. The family can pay off the balance and they keep the house. If they decide to sell it, they sell it at their own pace. Somebody's not
Hold on a second, because that answers the question in the chat. Somebody said it's just me and my sister and my mother's house is paid off. You got to talk with that sister and then you all have to decide how that's going to be divided. You can't split the house in half. So you're going to have to figure out, how it gets divided, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we have to make these conversations normal, right?
Yeah.
We need to make financial conversations normal in our families. We need to make sure that, like, asking a family member, hey, do you have life insurance? That's a normal conversation we need to have. People get afraid, scared. Oh, if somebody knows I have life insurance, they may kill me for the money and all that stuff. Well, I mean, yes, we hear movies and stories about it, but I'm yet to see a person who kills you for your life insurance money and still get the money and get away with it. You
Right.
know,
Right.
because you're an investment. You're an investment. With $1 million policy from a certain company, you are an investment for that company. So the moment something happens to you, they're gonna do some research. If there's any foul play involved, they're gonna do some research before they just pay out that. So to me, that's not a valid reason not to make sure that you let people know. And sometimes, again, that's where when you do your estate planning, you don't have to tell people stuff. Like, even your beneficiaries don't need to know, but if it's in writing, they'll get a nice surprise.
And the death certificate doesn't cancel out debt, because that's a common urban myth, that death certificate cancels out debt.
Yeah, no. I mean, just because you passed away doesn't mean your debt is automatically canceled out.
You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here. Take it into 2024. Death certificate does not cancel out debt, because a lot of folks are saying they wait until they die to cancel out their student loans and the this and the that. It doesn't.
No.
And if you owe the IRS, they will come after your family, right?
Yeah. Again, whoever inherits your assets is going to inherit your liabilities. Ooh. So we got to make sure we plan ahead of time and make sure things are, our houses are in order. And it's really not as hard as we think. These are things that we can do with the knowledge of what we need to do. We can set it up and then, make it a fun conversation in families. We need to normalize estate planning, insurance needs, medical bills. Well, hey, if you get sick, how are you going to pay that bill? Because co-pays, right? Co-pays. Insurance doesn't cover everything. That's the biggest misconception. People just think as soon as they see that insurance card, their brain is shut down to what they have to pay. Right. It doesn't cover everything. You have co-pays. Right. For the majority of the time, right, you're going to have some type of co-pay.
Right. Right. I do want to add one thing, and this is one of the conversations we had with our friends at Genentech at SABCS in December, Mo. And basically, Genentech and most pharmaceutical companies will help you pay for your drug. Genentech has a wonderful program where you just call their 800 number and they will hook you up, and they will find a way to help you get the medication that you need. So you do not have to go without medication if you're on chemo, or if you have a life and death situation that you're dealing with. And I believe that most of at least the larger pharmaceutical companies that make most of the drugs have some kind of policy to help you cover those costs. You just have to ask for it. And I think most people don't know that. They see that, oh my God, and I think we're finding now so many new chemo drugs we're getting them at the drugstore instead of getting an infusion at the hospital. So it's a whole different cost scenario, because when you're getting an infusion at the hospital, it goes into your hospitalization policy where you may not have a deductible, or you may have a different kind of coverage. But when you get that script that goes to CVS or Walgreens down the street, you got to go pick it up. You could be looking at a $20,000 bill. And if that's the case and you can't cover it, go find out what company makes that drug and call them.
And from there tends to be a lot of paperwork, and you got to communicate with your navigator, communicate with your team to make sure it all gets filled out. But they'll send you the stuff. They'll send it to your cancer program as well, and fill that paperwork out, get it back. And you're absolutely right. There are a lot of discounts for drugs. And then the cancer programs themselves many times have foundations and charity care. And it's not just for extenuating circumstances. It's to help with some of these costs of copays, because every time you go step in the door for radiation, $75, it could be your copay. And that money adds up. And it's why people don't finish. We got another question in the chat. Can family members contest a will and a trust?
Good question. So first of all, a trust is a very robust legal document. So family members, they're going to have a really good lawyer to go against your trust, because the trust, first of all, the trust is managed by a trustee who have their own lawyers. So it's not difficult. I guess nothing is impossible, but it's a long shot for anyone to contest a trust.
So
Or
yes,
will they can. Or will, yes, they can, but again, they have to prove things, right? It's always good to have a will, because that's going to be your only, the only thing that comes from you at that point. When you're not here, there's really nothing else, right? Everybody can say whatever. So when it comes down to it and decisions need to be made, as long as the will was made when you were, mentally with it 100%, and you knew what you were doing, and it's legal and it's filed with the court, it's your best bet. Anybody can contest it, but what extent, that's the question.
so you really want a will and a trust. So
You want both. You want both. They're really different. They're different.
interest. Yeah, protects your interest, protects your wishes, but the trust really takes the money out of your hands so that it's being controlled by another entity and people don't have access to it. Is that correct?
Yeah. And also even protecting your family, for example, your kids, right? Your minor kids. If I leave a certain amount of money for my kids, I can dictate what happens in the trust, right? When they're 18, they can have this percentage. When they're 25, they can have this percentage. When they get married, instead of just having an 18-year-old blow all the money, right? A lot of times, especially with life insurance money or other assets that children, we leave for children, they don't usually have access to control it until they turn 18, right? So I can dictate what I want to do, for my family. So there's a lot of different reasons why having a trust is good. Not only it protects your estate in general, it protects what you have, it keeps wealth within your family. A lot of families pass on generational wealth because of proper planning. Their assets are not being squandered in lawyer fees and different things that many people who when you're not financially educated, you lose a lot of money because of the fees and different things that happen. But when you plan and you have things set up in certain ways, then these assets are passed on to your family. So then you build generational wealth, you protect your assets. So yes, Ricky, we need both. We need a will and we need a trust, and the trust have a lot of different benefits, not just to take ownership away from you, but to dictate what you want your family to have as well, how you want things to happen. So you control it. You make the decisions on how it should be run.
Wow, Nani, you are dropping the bombs today, girlfriend.
Yeah. And again, it's a legal document that's done by lawyers, but we can definitely facilitate. So as a financial educator, it's important to educate people on everything: insurance, budgeting, planning for the future, retirement planning. As a Social Security analyst, when I talked about 20 times your income, every time you tell someone 20 times their income, they're like, what? What do you mean?
They
but,
oh my God, right? Oh my God,
but guess what though? Let's say anyone who's born after 1960, right? Their full retirement age based on Social Security is going to be 67. But people live easily 20 years into their retirement. If I retire at 67, I can easily live until I'm 87, easily, right? So where is that money coming from? I have clients where when we do their Social Security analysis or they pull up their statement, by 67, they're getting maybe like 1,000 or 800 or 700. Imagine if your income stops and you don't have any other income, how long is that going to take you? How far will that take you? So that's why it's so important to discuss that, 20 times your income and how much that translates, how many more working years do you have when we divide it up, how much you need to be putting aside yearly, monthly. And that really helps you put things in perspective when you're spending your money now, knowing that I need to plan for the future, because people don't fail to plan, they just plan to fail. They don't plan to fail, they just fail to plan.
They fail to plan. We
And
got
my
one
shoe
more
collection is
question.
not going to be my help me with my 20 times income. Right?
None of us are gonna retire at that rate. Woo, but let me ask you this. In terms of the beneficiaries, somebody said, and this is the last question, do you have to let your beneficiary know about your trust and your will? I said no, but it might be helpful for those that you trust to know what your wishes are and what documents you put in place.
Absolutely. I think under normal circumstances, right? families should have open, honest conversations about these things. That's under normal circumstances. We would hope that that's how things go, right? Because people need to know if they don't know anything. If it's much easier when they know the details while you're alive, that's a conversation, things go smoothly. However, beneficiaries don't necessarily have to know that they're the beneficiaries. There are some estate planning tools where you put a notifier in an executor. So a notifier will be someone you tell, hey, I have documents here if something happens to me. That's all they know. And then the executor, the company will then contact so that they can have access to the content of the information. So you, at least somebody has to know you have something somewhere, because, or put it in writing. You know, when you do your will, that's when you put it in writing. Hey, I have my financial documents, you know, with so company. This is my login, or this is the information, so that somebody at least can go to that company and because people don't usually know when someone passes away. Like, companies don't have a way of automatically knowing that, you know, somebody has passed away and now they need to do all this. But if somebody calls, that can trigger the process to go smoothly.
Yeah,
So
I know when my dad died, we didn't know he was sick. Literally, we found out he was dying on Friday. He died on Monday. But on Sunday night, before he was intubated, he said, okay, Ricky, go to my desk, open the second drawer, there's a key, and everything was there. Like, thank God for, like, we were so blessed that he did put stuff into a trust. He organized it to like the nth penny, nth detail. And thank God for that. But we had no idea that he was sick. He knew he was sick for 3 months, but we had no idea also what he even had to leave us, you know, other than his house. And so, but he was very pristine about it. But, you know, he did not tell us until the last minute. And even then he's like, okay, when I die, here's what you do.
yeah, and I'm sure that made the process so much easier.
Oh my gosh, so much easier. My stepmother still tried to contest it. She tried to contest a trust, which was impossible, and it was bulletproof. But he was a planner and he took care of us. And I see that. I'm so blessed that we had that. I hope, you know, I wish it on everybody, because I see what other people are going through and it's a nightmare. And they just lose the money, you know what I mean, to lawyers or to the courts or to whatever. You know, no matter how much the money is, it could pay for a college education. It could pay for someone to live. It could pay for, you know, it could be an heirloom in your family that you just want to have as a keepsake. So, gosh, Nani, we love you.
Absolutely. I love you guys too. Love you.
Girl, I'm coming to your house soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. These conversations, I love it because it's needed. We need to have these conversations on a regular basis. We need to get our financial house in order. And my hope for everyone, 2024, let the 2024 be the year that you put your financial house in order. Make sure you have the right life insurance coverage, the right health insurance coverage, the right estate planning, try to get out of debt, set up emergency funds, start your investment accounts, educate yourself. Financial education, honestly, you know, it's financial education and applied knowledge will be your best investment.
Great. How do people reach you, babe?
So people can reach me on Facebook, Nani Conde on Facebook. They can call me. We can put my number in the chat or email me, Health and Wealth with Nani. I have a company called Health and Wealth with Nani, and I do healthcare and financial education, you know, healthcare literacy and financial literacy, just so we can plan properly. Our health and wealth is interconnected, and we need to make sure that we know the basics of what we need to know to make sure that we protect both. So healthandwealthwithnani@gmail.com. Phone number 301-275-7274. I do offer free personal financial strategies for everyone, especially at the beginning of the year. I think it's a great way to have that financial roadmap, GPS, you know, of what you need. Absolutely.
Thank you for that. We'd love to have you to come back as well and be able to do this and sort of recap maybe midway through the year and see how people are doing and get some testimonials and really kind of make sure that people are on track for it, because if we only ever do it once, then, you know, we don't get a chance to really follow up with folks. So we're going to give you 6 months, people, to start getting your house in order. And we're going to check back in and see what questions you have and talk about your experience and give you some more tips, because Nani has them all and she is dropping all the pearls. So you need to definitely connect with her, connect with the resources, and let's make this, as she said, the year, right? The year you get your house in order. This is it.
Yep, all right, so we'll check back with you. I think you should be our 4th of July episode. The year will be
Ooh,
halfway over, and we'll
there
see
we
if
go.
we'll declare independence, financial independence, right?
I love it.
You
We're gonna
you know what? You
celebrate.
can never be free until you're financially free. So by 4th of July, let's create financial independence for for ourselves.
Well, I'm gonna send you a meeting calendar notice for the 4th of July show, and we will make this happen, and me and you need to talk, girl, like, because I need some
Same,
help.
same. I'll be calling you. Relatable, reliable, and real is what we do every Wednesday here on Black Doctor. We're so thankful for the opportunity, for the platform, for the people watching, the questions you ask, for the love and the spirit with which our guests share. Thank you for sharing freely, Nani, from your heart and giving people this rich information.
Yeah, thanks for helping
Thank you
us.
for having me. Thank you so much. Thank you
Best
for
of
having me.
love. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Thank you.
Happy New Year. Love you guys. Thank
Next
you.
time. See you next week. Bye. Love you both.
All right,
Love you.
bye.
And give Ari a big kiss for me. Tell her I
I
love
will.
her.
I got you. All right.
Okay.
She's good. Okay. Bye.
Bye.